What's up guys, it's Shonen Senpai and here. Today we are doing What If Deku Had Master Builder Part 2. And so, before we start off the story, Lemillion, aka Mirio, is gonna be the inheritor of One For All, like he was supposed to in the original anime before Deku showed up. And so basically, he's gonna be like, you're gonna see him in the story here and there, just like saving the day maybe, and like fighting off evil. And Deku's perspective on heroes is different, since now he thinks that people without quirks are the ones who should be like prioritized for like saving, since people with quirks can easily just train their quirks up and become strong enough to fight off like villains. And so Deku's an anti-hero, so he's not really a hero and he's not really a villain, so he doesn't like strive to become a hero as much. And so basically he doesn't really have any plans after UA, and All Might isn't really like in a relationship with Deku, like the one in the anime. To add to this, Deku has his primary weapon, which is that gauntlet you see on the right. And so basically what it does is that it can absorb any like elemental quirks and reuse them. So let's say like Todoroki hits him with ice and he absorbs it with that gauntlet, he's able to use that ice over and over again, but he doesn't have to like absorb it each time to use it. And so he can store everyone's like powers, and basically this will be useful for him since he won't have to like build any more stuff to like fight off others. He'll just rely mainly on his gauntlet, and his gauntlet also provides him with a bit of strength. During the school year, Deku was also training, since he was lacking behind the others when it came to like physical abilities. And so he used to do basically, do you know Saitama's training, where he did like 100 push-ups, sit-ups, and like a 100-kilometer run every day. So he would just like build up his endurance and his strength and all that, and he would take martial arts lessons just so he can practice hand-to-hand combat. Deku had also upgraded his previous mask, since before it was just like to cover his scar, but now he's added like basically a scouter, so he can sense people's like powers and like he can basically just analyze them. And he started to upgrade most of his stuff that he used to use, and he used to despise Bakugo still after that one incident, and never showed his face to anyone. And if he did, he would either have to kill them or he would just like have to put them down, since he never wanted anyone to know about his backstory and what happened in the past. And and he also talked to Bakugo, saying that if he ever mentioned what happened in nursery, that he'll regret it. In UA, Deku's only goal was basically just to protect the quirkless, since Deku's quirk, it manifested like a bit later, so people used to bully him whilst he was still quirkless until he got his power, and it was kind of boring, and so people used to bully him for that as well. And so Deku basically just like, he didn't care about the ones with quirks, he just cared about the people who were quirkless. So if he ever saw anyone that was getting like beat and they had a quirk, he would ignore them and tell them it's their fault for not training their quirk enough. And he basically had like a really like twisted opinion on heroes, a bit like Stain. And so one time he got in contact with Stain, and Stain asked him if he wants to join the League of Villains. Deku said that he's not about that life, and he's just like a lone wolf. And so after a couple of like weeks in UA, there was the League of Villains attack. Deku had already known that this was going to happen, but he would only intervene if anything happened to him personally, since he knew that everyone in his class was strong enough to fend them off, and would only like help people if they were like also being attacked with him. And so basically what he did was he put down like the weak people easily. And so Aizawa didn't really use his Erasure quirk, on the people with like the guns and all that. Deku proceeded to take down most of the people in like stealth, since he had gotten like pretty fast. Plus he had those boosters that he made, which was like a replica of Ida's like Recepto legs or whatever. Everybody was surprised by Deku's power, but then Deku, after he took down some of the weak villains, he just laid back, because he said that he wasn't going to do this all by himself, and had only took them down since he knew that they'd probably end up shooting at him. And so then after that, the villains see his power and they propose for him to join again. Deku still refuses, saying that he only helps the people who are at their weakest and most vulnerable, and wouldn't join a league of villains who just fight people who are weaker than them just to assert their dominance. And so some of the other villains started getting angry at him and thought that Deku was being a bit too cocky, and then they started firing like some of their elemental quirks at them. Deku absorbed it, and like analyzing the situation, he used the elements that he absorbed that were like strong against those villains, since like Deku was still smart and he still overanalyzed stuff. Like, had his journal and he would like keep track of everyone's strengths and weaknesses, just so if they ever came up to Deku and tried to fight him, he would already know what their weaknesses are and he would be able to win. Aizawa then called for backup, since he knew that they wouldn't be able to defend off all the villains by themselves, since Nomu was still there, and what's his name, Shigaraki, I think, he was still there as well, and they could easily like beat 1A at that time. And so Deku was there, and he just sat back, since there wasn't really anyone quirkless and everyone's quirks were strong enough, and so he knew that if they worked together they could probably take down like the majority of the villains. And then Aizawa Sensei told Deku that this is his chance to show that he wants to become a hero, and that's when Deku says that he doesn't get the point in heroes. They're just people with stronger quirks that fight off villains, and like they don't really help the weak, they just protect them. And so what Deku's motives was to like help the weak, to make them stronger, so then everyone's like balanced and they can like, no one's weaker than the other. This is where we'll be ending off the video. If I get 15 likes, I'll make a part 2 to this, and I hope part 3, and I hope you guys enjoyed.